Daf Gimel for Kiddushin. The Talmud tells us we're on Daf Gimel, 6 lines, maybe 10 lines from the bottom. Tomorrow, at the 2 dots, the Gemara is asking the question, Minyana Dereshel Mute Mai. So it says in our Mishnah, Aisha Niknesh B'Shalosh Drachim. A woman changes her status to become married in Shalosh Drachim in 3 ways. The Kones Atzma B'Shtei Drachim, and she goes from being betrothed to being single in 2 ways. So then asks the question, Minyana Dereshel Mute Mai. Why does it tell us 3? Usually it's telling us these 3 ways and not a 4th way. And Minyana de Seifel Mute Mai. And why do we have this? Why do we have this teaching about the concluding clause that it's 2 ways, these 2 ways, and not a 3rd way? So Gemara says, Minyana de Rachel Miute Chuppah. It's telling us in the Resha that these are 3 ways in which a woman gets married, but she's not going to be able to be betrothed through Chuppah. What is Chuppah? Chuppah is standing under the canopy. It's living together as husband and wife, living in one home. A lot of different explanations amongst the Rishonim what exactly Chuppah is. But the point is that the Chuppah is not a valid way of being betrothed. As Rashi says, in Masra Aviyah Chuppah, L'shem Kiddushin Eina Mekudeshes B'Kachas. The father gives her over to the Chuppah. This is not a valid form of betrothal. But the Gemara says, yeah, but we're going to get to this. God willing, that's what Hashem is Baruch and Daf Hey. According to Rav Huna, it says the Chuppah does serve as a betrothal from a Kal V'chomer, meaning to tell us that it does work. It does work from a Kal V'chomer. So if that's the case, according to Rav Huna, the Minyana the Kiddushin is L'miyute Mai. So Gemara says, according to Rav Huna, it's Miyute Chilupin. It's coming to tell us that if you betroth through a Chilupin, that's not going to be effective. Meaning to say, what is Chilupin? So Rashi here doesn't tell us. Rashi just says Kinyan Sudar. This is an acquisition. This is a formal transference through what's called Sudar, meaning to say the person who's acquiring something picks up his handkerchief, or gives over his handkerchief, or there's a chalipin, or there's an exchange of items. It's not the money where you just give money in exchange for something. Here we're saying that there's an exchange of items. This is called a kinyan chalipin. So that's not a valid way of performing a betrothal. That's what the Gemara says. Mute chalipin. You might have thought to say, hold the gamar kicha mistei Ephron. Since we learned about the taking the word kicha from the field of Ephron, you might have said ma'asad and ignai b'chalipin. Just like a field can be acquired through chalipin, as we learned from the book of Ruth. She says it says vayishlofna alo, he removed his shoe, and to transfer the field, and there was a field. So too here we might say afisha nami miknaya b'chalipin. So too women also can be acquired. She could change her status and be married through chalipin. Kamashwan, we don't say that. The Gemara says chalipin. Maybe indeed a woman can become married through chalipin. The Gemara says no. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Chalipin isnu b'pachas mishava pruta, because the chalipin can take place even if it's less than a pruta. We learned this from the Gemara in Bava Metzia in Perek Hazav, that you can acquire with the utensil even though it's not a value of a pruta. So chalipin works even though it's less than the amount of a pruta, whereas isha pachas mishava pruta, a woman with less than a pruta, lo miknaya nafsha. A woman less than the size of a pruta, she is not going to allow herself to be betrothed. She's not going to give herself over to be betrothed less than the size of pruta. And what's the reason? Reason is, she says, the ginai, because it's going to be considered to be disrespectful to her. So therefore, we cancel Torah's talip, and it doesn't work for Kiddushin. And even if there'll be a utensil that is the value of a pruta, and he's going to give it to her under the guise of chalipin, it's not going to be effective until he uses the language of kinyan or kicha or kiddushin. That's what Rashi says. That's what Rashi says. Rabbeinu Tam has the case. Rabbeinu Tam says, what about a circumstance where a woman herself agrees to become betrothed with a chalipin that's less than a pruta? Will it work? And the Meiri writes that even if the woman agrees to become betrothed, because Rashi says it's a genayua, so she just doesn't like it. Let's say she agrees. So the Meiri says even if she agrees to become betrothed less than a pruta, we're not going to accept it because we're going to say her das batal daita it's a kol adam. Her opinion is negated by the fact that the rest of the world doesn't view it that way. The Pnei Yehoshua, who always tries to defend Rashi, the Pnei Yehoshua says that since as a baseline, a woman is not going to be betrothed with chalipin, therefore the Gzeira Shava kicha doesn't apply to this concept at all, and so therefore it won't work. Anyway, we go on. There's a whole discussion. There's a whole discussion on that topic. Minyana de Seifa, back to our Gemara on the top of Gimel Mabez. Minyana de Seifa miute chalitza. The minyana of the Seifa, where we say that a woman is maknas atzma in two ways, she changes her status from being a mikudeshes to being a penuya to being unmarried in two ways through get and the death of her husband. What are those two ways coming to exclude? Miute chalitza, it's coming to exclude that if she's mikudeshes, she can't get out of that relationship with chalitza, where she removes the shoe and spits on the floor in front of her brother-in-law. You might have thought to say, that indeed it is acceptable through a kavachomer from a yavama. Ma yavama she'ena yotze beget, just like a yavama, she does not leave with a get, meaning to say if a man has if a woman is a shomeres yavam, and her brother-in-law wants to release her, he can't accomplish that through an actual get, through a divorce. But yotze bechalitza, but it does work to release her through chalitza. Zusha yotze beget, a regular mekudeshes who does get released through a get. Eno dinsha yotze bechalitza, for sure she should be released through chalitza. Kamash one, it doesn't work. The Gemara says maybe chalitza should work in this case. The Gemara says no. Amakra. Sefer krisus. The scroll is what separates her. Sefer korsa vein davaracha korsa. Only a scroll, a get, is what will release her from the marriage, but not chalitza. And we say that she's able to change her status and become a kudeshes with money, bekesef. So the Gemara asks the question, Minoan, how do we know? Now, even though we had said earlier on that phase, Amid Alf at the very bottom, we said kicha misteyafron. She reminds us that agav grara nakalei, the tirutze lashon kiyin de mastis, and that's not the real source. That was just said, as we say on pasan. But this is the real source. How do we know that kasef works to betroth a woman? And furthermore, v'su had tanan. Now, as we learned in the Mishnah in Kesubos. We learn in this Mishnah in Kesubos. Remember, it's a good chazara for all of Seder Nashim. Ha'av zakai bebito b'kedusheha b'kasef u'b'shtar u'b'biyah. That the father is able to get the rights in his daughter to her Kiddushin. The father is able to betroth his daughter b'kasef with money, and he gets the money if he betroths his daughter b'shtar u'b'biyah, and also he's able to betroth her by accepting a document or by handing her over for biyah. How do we know? We know in the Miknaya b'kasef davuo. How do we know that the father is able to betroth her through money, and how do we know that the money belongs to the father under this case? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you how we know. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, the Amar Kra, it says in the pasuk, and this pasuk refers to an Amaha Ivriyah, a girl who's under the age of 12, whose father sells her off to be a slave. And the reason why he does this is because he wants to care for her, because he's worried about her safety in the future. So he wants to sell her off to be a slave. So this Ama Ivriya, if he sells her off, she goes free in a few ways. She goes free when she becomes the signs of an adult, or she goes free if she serves 6 years, or she goes free if the master marries her. But let's say after 6-3, but let's say she goes free before that. Let's say she has the signs of being a Na'ara. So now she's a Na'ara. She's no longer 12. She's between the ages of 12 and 12 and a half. It says in the pasuk, "V'yatzah chinam ein kesef." She goes free and she doesn't have to give money to her master. Rashi explains, Gabe Ama every hour, we're talking about this Hebrew maid slave. Hayotzas me reshus adon. She leaves her master, bisimani narus, because she's showing signs of being a nara, of going through adolescence. The pasuk could have just written v'yatzah chinam. She goes for free. Below bayi ain't kesef. It doesn't need to say without any money. El midrash base. So what's it? Why is it being written like this? To teach us a drasha. Ain't kesef ladon zeh. There's no money to this master. Kishayotzemi many when she leaves him. But there was money to a different master when she left him. So ein kesef ladon zeh. Yesh kesef ladon acher. There was money to a different master when she left him. And who was that? Manihu, this was the Ab, this was the father. And so this is the proof that when the father gives over his daughter for Kiddushin, just like he gets the money for giving over for an Amma Ivriya, so too he gets the money for giving over for Kiddushin. That's the Gemara's, how the Gemara is understanding it. Gemara says, but maybe she's getting that money when she left, meaning to say, this first money when she was sold, maybe she gets the money. Look at Rashi. Maybe it says there's no money to this master, but she got the money. It doesn't say he doesn't get money. That we can learn there's no money for this master, but there is for a different him, and that's her father. Maybe learn from here. She doesn't get money when she leaves this time. But there was money a different time, and maybe it's hers. So the Gemara says, no, we're not going to say that. It's not logical to say that. Do you think that's logical to say that? It says that the father receives her Kiddushin, because it says, Espiti natati le'ish hazeh. You think it's logical to assume that the father collects her Kiddushin, v'i shakol kasva, and she's going to take the money? Her father gets the Kiddushin, and you think she'll take the money? No, she doesn't get the money. The money goes to her father. Gemara says, okay, yeah, the father has the right to accept her Kiddushin when she's both a minor and a nara. But maybe that's the case only by a minor that the father has the right to Kiddushin. Because a minor can't accept the Kiddushin on her behalf. Aval nara de isla yad l'kabel Kiddushin. Taktish. So maybe taktish enough shabbatishkol kasba, but a nara who does have the ability to receive the Kiddushin, maybe she will accept the Kiddushin herself and take the money. Well, let's look at Rashi, just to Rashi remind us of what we learned in Ksubos. Maybe she can get the money while she's a minor under the age of 12. Maybe the father gets the money while she's a minor. Why? Because he can collect that money. Because she has no authority. She's a minor. So maybe that's what's going on here. But a nara de islayad, but says Rashi, a nara, this we know there are 3 stages. There's kitana, there's a minor, there's a nara, adolescent, and there's bagros, an adult. And a nara, that when she brings forth the signs of adolescence, the mishaheviya shtei when she has 2 hairs, gedoli l'kol davar, she's going to be considered like an adult. L'kol onshin, she gets punished, or mamon, and she can collect money. memkar. So maybe there, when she is a nara tikadish, maybe she can betroth herself, and the money gets to herself, and she gets to keep the money. So the Gemara, hold on 1 second. So the Gemara's answer to this question is Amarkra Binura Beisavia. It says when she is Binura Beisavia, when she's a Nara in the father's house. This is a reference to the fact that the father has the right to annul her vows when she is a Nara living in her father's house. But the Gemara learns from here not only the law of Nidarim, of vows, but also the laws of that the father gets her money while she's a Nara, Binura Beisavia. Called Shevach Nerurim La'avia, all the Shevach, all the money that she makes as a Nara goes to her father. And that's how we know that while she's a Nara, the father collects her Kiddushin. So the Gemara says, how do we know that all the actions, all the money, the salary that the girl makes belongs to the father? Because it says, Ki yimkor ish espito la'ama. So the Gemara says, well, if you're saying that the source for the fact that while she's in Nara, the money goes to her father, why does Rav Huna say in the name of Rav that how do we know that a father collects his daughter's money? Because it says if a man sells his daughter to be a maidservant, just like a maidservant, the master gets all of her salary, so too a father gets all the salary of the daughter. But typically, if that's the case, that we can learn out from the Darim, from the pasuk about vows, typically learn out from here from the fact that it says that while she's in Nara, he gets everything that she makes. It must be that pasuk is only referring to the annulment of vows. And so that pasuk referring to salaries, only referring to the annulment of vows. Also here, with respect to collecting the Kiddushin on her behalf, you can't learn out from there because it's just by Faras Nadarim. And if you're going to say, well, let's learn out from Taras Nadarim, that let's learn out that just like her father can annul her vows while she's Nara, so too, you can collect her Kiddushin money. So the Gemara says, if that's what you want to say, we're not going to say that. Because money, one is money, Kiddushin is money, and vows are what's called Isur Veheter, and we're not going to learn out money from this area of prohibition. The Gemara says, so if you want to say, let's learn out from the Kanas, let's learn out from the fact that just like the father is able to collect her money if there are punitive damages that are placed upon a man because he assaults a woman, Rahmana Islam, and the father gets the 50 silver coins. So learn out from there that just like there the father gets the money, that also in the case of Kiddushin, the father gets the money. Mar says, no, Mimona Mikanasa, we can't learn out compensatory, which is money from Kanasa. That because the Kanas, what's the reason? The Kanas is a Chiddush, Rashi says. You can't learn out from something that's novel teaching, you can't learn out. So therefore, how do we know? We're still left with the question, how do we know that the father collects the Kiddushin money for her? Especially while she's a Nara. Okay, but if there was a ones or mafata that he has to give boshas upagam, he has to give humiliation and depreciation. So if that's the case, that's not a kanas, that is compensatory. So maybe we're not from there. Gemara says no. Shani boshas upagam davur shach b'gavav. No, that's relevant because that is going to cost the father money, because that's not kinas, and that's the father's money, because he's going to have to give a higher dowry to have somebody marry her if she was assaulted, because she's on the marriage market. Some guys will view that as less desirable. Ella mistabra, so it's more logical to assume that so it's logical to assume that what's the reason why we learn out from an Ava Ivriya that a woman is betrothed with money, and when she's a Nara, the father will receive the money. It's logical to assume that we learned it out from the fact that it says V'yatza chinam ein kesef. Like we said earlier, that she goes out for free and she doesn't have to pay them, and she doesn't pay the money to the Adon. And you can't say, well, why don't, and we can't ask the question, like the Gemara asked earlier, that maybe the woman herself gets the money of the Kiddushin. You can't say that. Why? Because because it's logical when the Torah excludes a case, it excludes the Yitzia of the Nara from her father and says it's not like the Yitzia of the Amma from her master. That means to say that in this case, that by the Nara there's money, but in the case of the master there's no money, because Yitzia de Kavasa Kamamayit. It's more logical to assume that it's excluding a Yitzia that's similar to it. And so when we're saying that there's a case being excluded, in this case there's money, but in another case there's not money, we're going to exclude the Yitzia that's similar to an Amma, meaning to say that when she and what is that case? That's Yitzias Erosin. Rashi says that's when she becomes betrothed, and that's similar to the Yitzias Amma. And so therefore that's what it's excluding. It's excluding the case where she gets betrothed. Because why? What's the similarity? The similarity is she's going and she's being released. So the Gemara says, well, damya, but the two cases are not the same. Why are you comparing the two cases? By the case of the Amma Ivriya, she's being completely released and she's no longer under the master's domain at all. But in this case, she's still not completely married. She's still missing nisuin. She's still missing complete marriage to the new husband because she needs to have chuppah still. So the Gemara says, "But first, but still, with respect to the vows, she's gone out of her father's domain. Before the father could have annulled her vow, but now she has the ability, the father and the husband annul the vows together. So therefore, he can no longer annul the vow by himself, and so that's the case. So we'll stop the recording here.